Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Reset Dialogues, Lift 'em Up, supporting the next generation of female leaders. We're really excited to host this and bring together an incredible panel of women in leadership. How do you deal with the challenges of being a female leader, and what does it take to make space for yourself in a male-dominated workplace? Women in leadership face a myriad of challenges, often quite different than men. So how can we create space for the next generation of women and guide them to be leaders? Our panelists will be sharing their experiences and how they envision the future of the workplace for the next generation. I'm joined by Maha Al Mezaina, head of Area 2071, an initiative of the Dubai Future Foundation. Launched by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai, Area 2071 is an ecosystem that aims to create a fostering environment for the creatives and entrepreneurs. It is set up as a digital and physical ecosystem to support the ambitious vision of becoming one of the world's leading nations by 2071 as part of the UAE Centennial Plan. In her current role, Maha oversees all aspects of the business, including the management and the implementation of the projects and initiatives that fall under Area 2071. She recently graduated from the UAE Government Leaders Program. Malvika Pankaj Khimji joins us from Oman. She's the director of Khimji Ramdas, which was established in 1870 and is one of Oman's pioneering and most respected business conglomerates. Malvika is the first of the sixth generation to join the family business and the first female member of the family to be inducted as a director. She oversees Khimji Ramdas's projects and logistics vertical and has a background in law. Wemmy de Maaker is the founder of Mawaheb, an art studio for adults of determination here in Dubai. Wemmy works to provide people of determination with a voice to be heard and give them the opportunity to further integrate in society and be recognized and rewarded for their talents. Rosemin Madhavji is the founder of RR&Co and one of the most prominent faces in the Middle East's luxury and media scene. Founded in 2007, Rosemin established RR&Co, the first boutique PR and showroom in the Middle East specializing in the luxury sector. The company focuses as an advisory office in the luxury space and as a digital influencer and brand ambassador for the world's leading brands. Lucy Chow is an investment committee executive at WBAF Angel Investment Fund. Lucy is focused on the innovation space, both in terms of supporting founders and as an investor. She's also the director of the Women's Angel Investor Network and an investor with Next Wave Impact Fund, the Founder Institute, and Mindship Capital. Thank you all for taking time out and joining us here today. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a bit about Reset. Reset is your everyday partner for stories and resources around mental health and well-being, inclusion, gender, health, and education. Since its launch, the team has focused on powerful stories that impact individuals in the UAE and across the globe and provide free resources to the community. Our idea behind Reset Dialogues is to foster a safe space such as this one to have conversations on topics that are often stigmatized or misunderstood and bring together people and stakeholders to share their lived experiences, address the challenges, and find potential solutions. You can follow the conversation live on our Facebook page at Reset Your Everyday and get snippets of it on our Instagram at ResetFest. The hashtag for this conversation is hashtag Reset Dialogues. We'd love to hear what you think as we go along. If you do have questions for our panelists, you can either DM us on Instagram or ask in the Q&A option here. So that's enough of me speaking. I want to start by asking all of you to fill our audience in on your leadership trajectory so far. Maha, let's start with you. Can you take us through your leadership journey and what your experience has been like?
Okay, so first of all, hello everyone. I think in terms of my leadership journey, I see it more of, I don't see it as a one-stop kind of journey, but it doesn't end or start somewhere. It keeps on going. And in so many ways, I would say, and admittedly, I have made a lot of mistakes in the past, but I think from those mistakes, I learned from them. And then I started somehow experimenting in the way I either deal with the teams or the projects that are being given to us to work on with my colleagues or even external parties or external stakeholders who we work with very closely. I think it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing project. There is a lot of gems that you might find along the way as you go, and you might fall into different cavities or even holes. But one thing for sure, I think what you need to do is like pick up yourself every time you fall into those cavities. And one thing that I want to really highlight is that persistence is key when it comes to leadership.
I think those are very important points and great advice. Rosemin, you moved to Dubai a few years ago, and you spent your time between London and Canada. So what was it like breaking into the Middle East fashion and luxury scene, and what were some of the challenges you faced?
So I moved to Dubai about 14 years ago, which honestly, time flies in this place. But yeah, it's been 14 years. To be honest, I was in the corporate sector in London, and I was working for mainly my large part of my career was working with Tom Ford at Gucci Group, and I was literally just starting my next kind of big role at Dior. And when I came to Dubai with family, it was very much a 3-week. Just coming here, and I've been to Dubai, so I did kind of know the landscape of it, but I was here for 3 weeks and heading back to this new role that I had. But when I came here, what I realized is right away, I started getting calls from colleagues that I used to work with back in Europe and the States, and they would be asking about the Middle East market. And I started seeing gaps in the market because the standards of doing PR and marketing, especially in the luxury space, wasn't the same as it was in the standards back there. So that's it. My business really started organically, and it started with literally doing kind of mystery shopping and giving back feedback about how brands were handled here. And then I kind of got my first big client, which was Tiffany & Co. And all of that came through word of mouth. So I think for me, it happened organically. If I didn't move here, I would have just honestly stayed in that corporate ladder and worked my way up.
So you essentially, in a sense, made history in your own way by establishing RR&Co, which is the first boutique PR and showroom in the Middle East. And Malvika, you, on the other hand, essentially made history when you became the first female director at Khimji Ramdas, which is at the forefront of business in Oman. What has it been like being the first woman to be inducted in a 6th-generation family business, and what have been some of the challenges you've faced, especially as a young woman?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Aakanksha, for having me. I would like to say that it was a revelation of sorts, something that was not perceived as my birthright, but my parents made me believe that it was my right if I wanted, and if I worked my way to be here. I also feel that a lot comes with starting from the bottom. You cannot be a leader overnight. You can be given the tag of being a leader, but unless you don't work your way from the bottom and learn your actual business, it's not possible. And it's something that I had to work hard at, because sometimes even if you want to work your way from the bottom, there are people around you that feel that because you're a family member who's been inducted as a director, you don't need to do it. But luckily, I had a very good support team with all my colleagues. They really pushed me. So there were challenges, but I would like to look at it as if I had less challenges and more opportunities while being inducted into the business and training within the business as well. So it's been an interesting journey so far.
Well, I mean, like Malvika said, you have to, get your hands dirty and learn all aspects of the business. And for you at Mawaheb, you have built it from ground up. So take us through that journey that led to the creation of your current operational model.
Good morning, everybody. It actually started in 2002 when we came to Dubai with my family. And the first thing I noticed is that there were no people of determination around. That is actually how I thought we need to do something for the people with special needs, people of determination, how we call them here in the Middle East. And I became a volunteer at one of the schools for special needs for children, and that is where I learned that there was nothing for the grown-ups. And after a couple of years, from being a Jumeirah Jane for years, I thought, okay, that's enough. Let's do something for the community. Yeah, what you said, you really have to build it up, and you have to make sure that people understand your concept, that people believe in you, that you have people around you who support your ideas. And that is basically how it started. An art studio for people who were sitting at home. Yeah, they thought that there was no opportunity for them getting depressed and behavioral problems. So that was absolutely a need to do something for those people. And I just started. I started with writing a business plan. I did my research. I started an awareness program, because you need to know whether there is a niche in the market, as in that people believe in you, and that there is corporate business out there who would like to support you financial, because it is a soft market, but there is also a business market, because at the end of the day, you need funds to run an art studio like that. And for 2 years, I have been just working on all my paperwork, my licensing, my premises, the funds, etc. And this all started in 2008, and we were able to open the studio in 2010, which is 10 years ago.
I mean, the work you're doing at Mawaheb, it's great. I've been there. I've been to the cafe, and it's such an inclusive and positive environment. And as someone who works with people of determination, can you speak a bit about the challenges that you see women of determination face?
Well, I think they have two challenges, and especially in this part of the world. First of all, they are a woman, and then a person with a disability, and often people don't notice them, people ignore them, people don't take them serious. People don't take the effort to get to know them, and often we still unfortunately think that people with special needs, that they are not smart. And that is what I would like to say to everybody: get to know them. You know, we judge, and that's still what we do. We judge people on how they look like, how they talk. When a person is in a wheelchair, we have immediately an instant idea. And that's wrong, because we conduct CSR events, corporate social responsibility events, at the studio, where we invite the corporate business. And so often, when they stay for 3 hours at Mawaheb meeting the students, that they realize that they had no idea how smart they are. So that is what women with of determination, what they face. So first of all, they are a woman. Second, they really have to work hard, and double so hard as you and I have to do, because of the ignorance of people.
Yeah, and I think, through conversations such as these and through the work that you do, we can help change the mindset. You know, one of the interesting things that you've mentioned is raising funds to sustain the business. And that's something, Lucy, you know about quite well. You're in venture capital, and it still tends to be a male-dominated field, although we're now seeing more female-led businesses. Can you speak a bit about your journey about, breaking into venture capital and being an angel investor?
Sure. It's really interesting, because if you asked me 10 years ago whether I would have seen myself as an investor, probably not. But there's been a lot of opportunities because of being in the UAE, very much like what Rosemin said. It's been opportune. My background is banking. And essentially the first entry into angel investing, I think we should all, feel open to taking a chance as women. So there's two things that I promote: not only investing in businesses, but as a woman to become an investor in companies. And there are great programs now to teach you how to be a great angel investor. And I'm hoping more female role models, because as we know, when there's a female investor, say in a venture capital firm, and she's a general partner, there's more chances that female founders will get funded. And it's a fact. The portfolio of companies where there is a female GP or someone in the investment committee that's female, the number and the percentage of female founders that are funded go up exponentially. So that's very important. And we talk often a lot as to why is it that women who have great ideas, it's not that women don't have investable ideas. That's a real wrong way of viewing female founders. They have fabulous ideas. We certainly see a lot in this region, and this is not something limited to female founders. Male founders will tell you the same thing. It's just very hard to raise funds, and we need more people reaching into their pocket, whatever that amount might be. We can all start off as angels to fund startups, because I truly believe small businesses are the bedrock of all economies. So I'll just leave it there for now.
I'm going to come back to the point that you've raised about the benefits of, investing in female-led, startups and having female-led angel investors. For now, I want to, we've talked a bit about your background. I now want to move the conversation towards the roadblocks and the challenges that you and other female leaders face, because I think it will resonate a lot with the audience as well. So Malvika, let me start with you. You've touched upon it a bit, but can you speak a bit about some of the challenges you initially faced when you joined Khimji Ramdas and then moved up the ladder?
I think something Wemmy mentioned stayed with me. She said it's the perception, first of all, her two reasons, one being a woman, and it's the perception people have of you. And when I was inducted into the board, one of the first comments that I was told was, oh, it's going to be such a glamorous board. And I thought to myself at that point that just by having a woman there doesn't make it, it's not just about the glamour, it's about the work that's going to be put in, I think that's the perception people had when they saw me there or when they heard of me being there, and not realizing that, I had been put in a program where I was being trained at a warehouse 70 kilometers away from home. I would drive there every day and no complaints. I worked in the warehouse at the very bottom, worked my way up. I was probably one of the very few ladies working on the ground level over there. And eventually, we distribute for Procter & Gamble, and it was a training program by Procter & Gamble that I did in-house. And I worked my way slowly throughout the whole training program in different departments. And eventually you realize that, even though people think, there were people who thought she's the owner's granddaughter, and then there were people who thought she's just here for a few months and she's not going to be able to cope and she'll go out. But then there were the other people, the people who I concentrated on and who I held on to, who thought, no, they were determined to make sure I learn, and I learned the best. And I tend to focus on those people. So I think the challenge was not to get bogged down by the negativity or the people who think you can't do it. I think you need to concentrate on the people, and luckily I had a very large number of people who thought I could make it. So I tend to, to concentrate on those people. And I think that's what gave me the opportunity to grow and to learn my business the way I did. So it was a challenge, but it was also, again, as I said, it's an opportunity I got.
Can I say something?
Yep.
Isn't it important for all businesses to get into more diversity? And I think we are in a time that it is important that we have all kind of different people around in the business, because I think that makes it as a whole. And that is men, women, people of determination, different religions, different colors, etc. I think we need diversity. And so, yeah, Mabruk, yeah.
So Malvika, it's really interesting that you say that, somebody made a comment about how the board will be more glamorous, because you're one of the hardest working people I know. And I know how much you've had to sort of, go, the miles you've had to go to sort of establish yourself in the company. And that's also evident in the fact that you moved to another city after marriage, and now you shuttle between two cities for work, and then where you and your husband stay. Most men don't have to do that. So take us through what that is like and what impact that has on your professional life.
I think there was never the second thought of not working after I get married. I've seen my mother, who's been one of my biggest inspirations in life, work throughout being married, and I've seen my father support her and today support me. And luckily, I have a husband who I chose because I knew he would support me through my life, through my career, who's very pushy towards me working and, proving myself in my workplace. So it was something that I never saw as something that would create a block for me in order to continue working. It could get hectic at times, but honestly, it keeps me going. With COVID now, things have changed. It's not as easy to move back and forth and take a flight for a day or take a flight and stay for 10 days, depending on my work, of course, schedule. But now with what also came with COVID is people are more accustomed to using Zoom to do meetings and other ways of communication that don't require people to physically be present. So I managed my work throughout. Being in projects and logistics, our work never stopped. So I managed my work throughout with that. And it's great having supportive parents, and it's really good having a supportive husband. I think that's what, I think he would not have married me and I would not have married him if we did not have the similar work ethic and the same similar goals in order to achieve what we can achieve. So it's been good because I've never been stopped from working or asked to reduce my work or change my work lifestyle. It's always been something that he pushed me towards and my parents pushed me towards. So it's not been that difficult, honestly.
I think that's so lovely because we obviously do need more women in business and more women in leadership. And Rosemin, there's this age-old notion that entrepreneurs need to hustle all the time without breaks. What's your take on that? Especially as a woman, do you feel the need to go the extra mile to prove yourself?
Honestly, like I think I am a hustler, but I think a lot of that actually has to do with my parents were immigrants they moved to Canada. They're from East Africa. They settled in Canada, and I saw my parents start all over again from scratch. And so I came from a household of all my uncles, and even though they were professionals or accountants and, back home in East Africa, coming back to Canada, they had to start again. And so I grew up where my dad was building, his net worth from scratch, and it wasn't a 9-to-5 job. And so as much as when I did go to university, I did go in the corporate route. When I started my business, I realized that, to be honest, when I moved to Dubai, I was actually working 6 days a week or 7 days a week until my business started rolling. And the only day off I actually had to force myself was a Saturday, because Sunday, of course, everything's open here. And so it was my chance to be in the office, catch up with things, work with the team. And Fridays was a day I was doing all my conference calls with all the brands that were, based out of Europe and North America. So to me, I've never been in a 9-to-5 environment. And so for my personal experience of being an entrepreneur, yeah, I do feel like you're kind of always on the go. Also, when I look at my team, at the end of the day, it was my name on the sign, so the buck stops with me. Decisions that are made, how the team feels, like being very, making sure you had empathy, making sure you had a little bit of structure, everything comes down to me because it was my business. And so, yeah, I don't know. For me, I am a hustler, and I think it took me a while to realize that, because when I actually reflected on what my childhood environment was, I grew up with my uncles, my aunts, my mom used to work, all of us, they built what we have now because of the circumstances they were in. So I think maybe I have that gene in me.
I think I can relate to what you're saying because obviously I moved to Toronto when I was, I think, 8 years old. So I'm familiar with the immigrant struggle that comes with it. So, one of the other things is that people have this idea of what an entrepreneur should be like. Have you ever felt the pressure to conform to, people's and fit into that box?
For me, honestly, for me, because my business happened so organically, it was something I never wanted to do. And because brands and kind of old designers that were friends of mine, everyone started coming on board without me even asking. They'd be like, Rosemin, I've signed with this distributor and you're handling my PR and marketing, or you're going to be my advisor. And overnight, this business grew, and that's how I started kind of building my team. So, I never kind of conformed to what a traditional entrepreneur is. And honestly, for me, I always say it, I did learn on the job. I realized when the business, I started seeing it grow, I actually sat down and did a traditional SWOT test. I said, what are my strengths? And I think you have to be so honest with yourself. And I always tell people that is you can't do everything and you can't do it well, right? So I realized, my strengths are X, Y, and Z, and where are my weaknesses? That's where I started hiring employees. So making sure that, my finances were ordered, making sure I had a great writer, making sure that, the admin in the office was done, making sure, I just started filling in what my company needed around me for me to do the best job I could to make sure this company grew.
I think that's such great advice because I think I'm at that point now where Reset is a little over a year old. So everything you're saying is going to be taking down notes and basically doing that. Wemmy, your job is very people focused. So what are the challenges that arise when your business is cause oriented? And what are the boundaries you've had to establish for yourself as an entrepreneur?
First of all, it was about something in the but in the field what was not there yet. So first of all, I had to convince people that it was important that those people who were sitting at home, that they needed a purpose in life. And the biggest struggle was actually to find my license because it didn't fit into the whole system. And it took me about 2 years knocking on several doors to find the right way to actually start my studio. So that was really difficult. And one of the ladies said earlier that constantly falling and standing up and just keep going because you believe in what you're doing. And I think that was my strength, that I really, really believed in what I wanted to set up. And so it took 2 years of my life to knock on several doors and to at the end to find the right license to start.
And what are, some of the boundaries you've had to say, because I know that how deeply intimate Mawaheb is. So when is the cutoff that you're like, okay, after this, I'm not going to answer any calls or I'm not available today? Do you ever do that?
Well, when I'm at the studio, I've got a little office, which is sort of our storeroom as well. And so that is where I have my desk upstairs, and when I'm there, it's really hard to finish my own work, my paperwork, etc., so to say. And so there are constantly people who need something from me, which I like as well, because I like the dynamic. There are students who need something. There are students who, although the teachers are there, there are always certain questions that they need from me. I like the diversity. I like the fact that there are so many aspects. And what Rosemin said as well, there are certain things what, are not your strength. And I have as well. I have people who are doing those parts for me, like indeed the administration and the products, etc. and it is hard work. It is 7 days a week and 5 days at the studio. The days that I'm not at the studio, I have to finalize my my other work. Yeah.
You know, at some point, all entrepreneurs need to evaluate the financial future of of their business, and this is something you're all familiar with. And Lucy, you know, a 2019 Columbia Business School study found that female-led ventures are 63% less likely to receive VC funding. So what needs to change to ensure that women get equal funding opportunities as their male counterparts?
Yeah, that was a very good study, because I think that what came out of that was, and if not that study, very close to it, the term unconscious bias when investors looked at investable companies. And what that meant was essentially, because all the decision makers were predominantly men, they tended to invest in male founders. And so, and I alluded to this in the earlier, that we need to have, first of all, more women that are at the table making decisions, whether they're in a VC or an angel fund, making the investment decisions. So one. Two, well, one other thing that was interesting that came out of that study was that there was a perception that female-led businesses, you know, were a non-starter, was the term. And, you know, that's really a shame, because it isn't true that women just focus on lifestyle businesses. I mean, they're passionate. We've had a few of the other speakers talk about the importance of diversity. So there's very few businesses and companies that don't have diverse customers, for instance. And so unless there's diversity in boards and organizations, or diversity in the founder group, you know, because we're very big also on having a male and a female founder, then you're missing out on a huge chunk of your customer base, and understanding what they want. So yeah, so going back to the fact that that this perception of women founders and companies not being investable, I'll tell you one thing that's been interesting. I think there's no surprise that the run on startups, the sector that is funded heavily in the last few years, have been the tech sector. And this kind of wraps us back into the whole STEM and women in STEM. Women, you know, we need to have more girls look and finish in the STEM area, and only then will they feel comfortable starting companies that have a tech platform. So we're seeing more. We're seeing a big jump of female founders in the tech space, but we could still use more.
Maha, we've heard the challenges that our panelists face, and part of your role is to help alleviate some of those and foster an ecosystem for female entrepreneurs. Can you speak a bit about the initiatives at the Dubai Future Foundation that help champion women leaders?
Okay, so as Dubai Future Foundation, when we first started back in 2016, we used to be a small government startup, I would say. We used to be 2 ladies out of 5 team members, and this number actually grew so high in the recent year. Now, I would say around 50% of the women in Dubai Future Foundation are female. So this gives you some sort of verification that really and truly future is female. In many initiatives in DFF, we've seen women who are leading those initiatives, such as Area 2071, which is the ecosystem that fosters the entrepreneurs as well as the creatives. We have the Center of Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is affiliated with the World Economic Forum, the UAE government with the WEF basically, or the World Economic Forum, and they're taking leads in future-led projects such as Museum of the Future, which everyone is basically anticipating. One initiative that I can mention that we're very much proud of is we have forged as women in Dubai Future Foundation what we call a Women Majlis. And this initiative is basically launched to celebrate women and their achievements. So what we're aiming to do is gather or create dialogues among women, and basically ensuring that the community, the women community, are actually learning and sharing experiences with one another. And so I believe this is a support initiative that we had as part of Dubai Future Foundation.
And I just want to say that the Dubai Future Foundation has been so incredible. In the early days when I was just thinking of Reset, I used to sit in the youth hub and, try and put together plans. So it's definitely played a big role in my career as well. In terms of stereotypes, women all around the world, no matter the profession you're in, everywhere women face stereotypes, misconceptions. We're supposed to fit into society's idea of what a woman should be like, of what a wife should be like, entrepreneur, you name it. So Rosemin, let me get you in on this. What do you think are some of the stereotypes female entrepreneurs and influencers face that you think need to be broken? Because influencers get a lot of flack, especially.
I think with, the influencer side, I think I end up falling in by default just because I've worked with all these luxury brands. And when I actually closed the PR side of the business and moved more into an advisory, a lot of the brands just kind of recognize me as a part of them because I helped build them out here. So indirectly, I kind of fell in that influencer space. But I don't really, that's not my bread and butter of the business, to be honest. And I'm happy to associate with these brands because I felt like I've kind of been with them for so long. So, but I think with women in business, I just remember coming here so long ago, or 14 years ago, and just trying to set up the license and set up these things were so difficult. But honestly, now there's so many great companies, and even the one that I've set up my business for has actually a entire department that's dedicated to women in business, the free zone that I'm a part of. So I honestly am so impressed with the change. And I think as long as people are the business here is progressing, which I've seen, I think that's kind of the first step forward. So I'm actually very proud of this country and what I started from. And now, where my company's registered, there's so many female kind of small businesses and women that are coming on board, and they're really helping them guide them of what it's like to set up a business. For me, it was like such a learning curve. So I think there's definitely progress being made.
Yeah, and I think, even for me personally, I wouldn't have had the opportunities had I not been in Dubai to establish Reset and to tell the stories and do the work that we do. And, Malvika, there is this idea that if a woman is assertive, she's, called a few names, and they're And the logistics industry is male dominated, and now you're at the head of that sector in Oman, and you've said that you've had to learn to be assertive, whereas for a man it's supposed to come naturally. Can you speak a bit about that and your experience?
My assertive side only started coming up a few years down once I was inducted in the business. So initially I was quiet. I would do the job that was given to me at my desk, and I would participate in meetings and observe and learn and gauge what's going on, but not speak as much. This was my initial years. But over time, over experience, and also gaining that confidence of knowing what your work is, it gave me that the confidence to be assertive when I needed to be. At times, I still hold back, even though I want to be assertive, because honestly, because of the way the workspace works. It's, as you said, the names we get called for being assertive are very different as the names a man would be called for being assertive in a workplace. And you need to keep that balance going just in order, I believe you need to, you can be forceful to a certain extent, but if it's going to make your business or your business environment suffer, it's not worth it in the long run. And therefore, over time, I pick my battles wisely because I think it's wisely, and I tend to stay away from people or environments which I feel are unnecessarily going to create hurdles for the company. In the end of the day, what matters is where my company will go, not just tomorrow, but 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. And I keep looking towards that. And as long as I have good intentions, and as I said, I tend to ignore what other people have to say, but at the same time, it shouldn't be an issue for, everyone around me.
I think that's really good advice. And, money is another taboo that comes with being a woman. So, Lucy, what do women need to know when looking for funding?
Yes, well, I guess you've led into it. You cannot be afraid to ask for money. So let's take it from a female entrepreneur's perspective. It's a fact that female entrepreneurs, when they value their company, they value it less than a male values their company. And so we need to stop doing that, ladies. We need to, we need to be bold about how much time we've invested in putting a company out there. And, I'm not saying be unreasonable and, come up with like just something from the moon, but, you're very capable. If you don't, and I always say, if you don't have the skill set, bring in a consultant to work on your financials, to give you a strong indication of what your company's worth today. And then also when you are looking for money, and I understand it's really tough, because when you need money, you'll take it. But it's a big deal to go and ask an angel or a VC for money, right? Because they're going to take some of your equity, your hard-earned equity. And again, there's sometimes a tendency to give away too much of your equity. And, fight for every percentage. Okay, so you're worth the VC money, obviously you are, but also make sure you fight to make sure you don't give away too much. So these are hard conversations, absolutely. They're very uncomfortable conversations that women typically are not used to having. And we tend to not like to be confrontational, but it's not being confrontational or not, is business.
I think that's wonderful advice and very, well put. Maha, how can the public and private sector work in collaboration to better support women in business?
I think in many ways, the private sector need to somehow empower or encourage to promote women who actually have the right merit. And the UAE, if you look at it from a government perspective as well, created the benchmark for that when it comes to gender empowerment here in the UAE and specifically in Dubai. Reflecting on this, Dubai Future Foundation believed in that empowerment and actually created the platform for myself as well as my different colleagues in the different sectors within DFF. And that in many ways strengthened our role to create the diversity that Lucy has mentioned previously. And created as well the infrastructure to have futuristic kind of services here in the UAE, as well as humanity in general. So I believe look for those who have the right merits, bring them and give them that platform and enable them and empower them. That's the main thing that either private or as well as government sector should start working on.
And Wemmy, you touched upon that as well, and the need to have a more diverse workforce. What changes should businesses create in order to be more inclusive and support people of determination?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and something what especially UAE has really worked on over the past years as well. I think first of all, the business, and then I'm just talking about accessibility, but I think is a very important point. It's just simple things that when you have your office, that you make sure that it is accessible for people with special needs. I think that is number one, that whenever you have a customer coming in or when you have a new employee, that the infrastructure is there. And that again, that we have to implement this in our way of thinking. that, you know, they are part of our life, and they are not separate from the society. They are part of the society. So I think whatever we do, whatever we build new, that we have to think about the people of determination. So that is number one. And again, talking about the diversity, what I really believe is that in a business that it is important to have all kind of different people. And you will be really surprised what it will do with your business if you have a person of determination working for your company. And that can be maybe very simple, somebody who is just at the front desk, to somebody in your administration, or maybe marketing or sales. And one of our students, a lovely lady, she is a marketing assistant at a really high-end business here. And she is doing an amazing job. And of course, we have to teach the employees, and that is another thing. It's all about awareness. You know, it is about us, that we have to get ourselves familiar with people of determination.
Yeah. And, you know, we've now heard about the challenges. Now I'd like to get all of your thoughts on what we can collectively do to empower women and the next generation. Maha, you said that you've been provided opportunities as a woman in leadership here in Dubai and in the UAE. You recently graduated from the UAE Government Leaders Program. What has been your biggest takeaway from there? And what advice do you have for a woman looking for a career in government?
Okay, so before I actually graduated from the Government Leadership Program, I went through, I would say, some challenges during that time, because at the end of the program, we had to deliver a project, and this project is going to be shared with the panelists, key influential leaders within the government here in Dubai. So at that time, I remember I was in a place where I had to come up with a solution. I was somehow cornered among 3 different men, and I had to take that team as well and build something out of it, because in so many ways, the team was a bit unsteady. And I think from that, we acted really fast. We had to act really fast because we had to deliver within a month time frame. And we had to act fast and quickly. So now I think looking back into it and really just reflecting on the experience that I had from that time, and that was probably the first experience I had when it comes to working with teams and building projects that are high stake and has a lot of influence when it comes to the government. I think I appreciate going through this time. It was a tough time during that time, yes. Sometimes you feel clueless, you need some support, you need some help, and don't be afraid to ask for that. But if I didn't learn from this experience, I wouldn't be the person that I am here today. And I'm very much grateful towards having such an experience. Can you repeat the second question you asked me? I'm sorry, I'm just...
it was just, you know, like, what advice would you give for women looking for a career in government?
The key and the most important thing is for them to be resilient. Resiliency is quite important, especially with government. A lot of people have this perception that there is high bureaucracy around. But if you are resilient throughout the whole process, if you are resilient working with the different personalities around you, I think that itself can allow you to go from one place to another.
And I think resilience is something you've shown quite well, Malvika. You know, now that you're a woman in leadership, how are you making Khimji Ramdas more inclusive for other women?
I think in terms of my co-workers, there were many women that were inducted many years ago. So in fact, they are the ones that have inspired me, and they are the ones who have pushed me, the girls that work with me, around me, the ones that have trained me to stand where I am today and to keep going. And other than that, in terms of the family, I have my aunt who's now part of the board. I have my sister who's also a part of the board. So it's something that's bound to happen. It's not like there was anyone stopping them, or it was just that step that had to be taken, which my dad took, and and brought me on board. So today there's no such thing as women not being allowed or not being empowered, but we still have to fight, whether you sit on a board or whether you're in an accounts division or whether you're working in marketing or sales, to prove ourselves a little more than the others around us. And whatever sector you work in, there's always that, okay, at the end of the day, she's a woman. How long is she going to go on for? At some point she might stop. And I think you need to prove yourself and, be determined to say you're not going to stop. And in KR, we've been blessed that we're based in Oman, and Oman is, led by His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, Allah Rahmah, who passed away in January. We've had enough, goals set by him for women to lead from the top, from many years, from the 70s when he took over the country. And now we're blessed by His Majesty Sultan Haytham, who in his first speech to the nation in January mentioned how women empowerment is one of the key aspects of the country's growth. So I think if you have leaders like that, and we have enough women we look up to, whether it's in the government sector or the private sector in Oman, that have led the way, I'm not someone who's the only person they can look up to for inspiration. In fact, as I said earlier, I look to them for my inspiration, and we're blessed.
That's great. And Lucy, you talked about this before, but can you elaborate a bit? In your experience, how do organizations and startups benefit from having more female leaders and mentors?
Yes, very pragmatically, if an organization has a diverse board, diverse founders, they actually contribute. It impacts the bottom line. So if you want a company to make more money, it's very easy. You make sure you add women onto the board in management. It still boggles the mind. We're, in countries that are very capitalistic, it's a very simple formula. And it's a fact. It's not something that's been pulled from the air. Diverse boards and companies make more money.
And Wemmy, you've also talked about this, but what would you say is the biggest change businesses need to create in order to be more inclusive and support women of determination?
I think the government has to make they have to start with an infrastructure, because we only have schools for children with special needs here. And I think if we start with building the element of the elementary school and the high school and vocational studies here for people of determination, that we give them the opportunity to go further than where they are now. So that is, I think, what the government really have to do. Secondly, I think it is important, again, that we get to know the people of determination, step out and please take them serious, and get to know them and see the value. And, I have learned a lot from my students. It's not that we are there and I'm running the studio. We've got beautiful art teachers. The students are teaching us every day. And that is on a complete different level than when we go to university. It is on an emotional humanitarian level. And I think that is what we all need. And I think that's a very important part for the business. So one thing for the government to make sure that there's an infrastructure, that women with special needs, people of determination, that they have the opportunity to step up and get also the certificate, a diploma. That is something that is absolutely something important for them to become more part of our society.
And Rosemin, you're the queen of branding and all things social, and you do it in, such an organic manner. How important is personal branding for young entrepreneurs, and how can they use social media to work for them and by extension their business?
So I totally believe in personal branding, and I tell everyone when it comes to social media, before you post that picture, think 1,000 times before you post it, because at the end of the day, for an entrepreneur, you are the face of the brand. And as they say, people make an impression in like the first 3 seconds. So you can imagine in a world where things are so visual, people are strolling up and down, and the first thing they're looking at is the website, whether it's a social media account it's a Facebook company account or Instagram. You want to make sure everything is really aligned. And I'm a complete advocate for really triple checking 1,000 times before you post something, because it is really a reflection of you and your business.
And Lucy, I know that you have to leave soon. So before we turn to audience questions, I want the panelists to weigh in on one thing. So Lucy, let me just start with you. Not every woman is an entrepreneur, but in some capacity, we're all leaders in our own way. So what's your advice for young women listening in on how they can tackle the challenges that come their way and support each other?
We often talk about how important it is for young women and young men to have role models. Okay, so I think accessible now. As Rosemin mentioned, we can just go on Instagram, any social media platform, and I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. It's amazing how open people are if you reach out to them and say, I really like your journey, I want to understand it a bit more. So I also talk a lot about networking. And whatever word you want to use, all I'm talking about is utilize your social capital. So, as an entrepreneur, for instance, always make connections with investors before you need to fundraise. So and then to answer your question, therefore, as a young person, you don't know, maybe one day you want to go into a different industry, you might need to get an internship, you might want to find and transition into another job. It's very important that you look for people that will be not only mentors, but potential sponsors. And what that means is that they will talk about you and they will advocate for you and amplify your skill set and your messages. So I think mentors are important, but someone that has the ability to be a sponsor is even more important.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, I just want to say, to whoever's watching, first of all, Lucy's advice is amazing, because your goodwill is a true testament of when you're going to start changing careers. And so what people say about you when it comes to hard work and loyalty and your trust and what you've put into that business, it all honestly comes down to your goodwill. So whatever you put in the first time, whether it's an internship for people that are starting out or work experience, put that time in, learn, ask questions. And if you can find a mentor, 1 or 2 along the way, that is the best start of your career.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice from both of you. Lucy, I know that you have to leave. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time and for your insights and for being so supportive. If the rest of the panelists can just stay on, please, to wrap up. Maha, do you want to take this question and answer what your advice would be for the next generation?
Sure. Okay, I think the main important thing, which I think it's very important, just touching base on what Lucy has mentioned, is that you really need to believe in yourself and don't afraid to go out there and share what you believe with the world. And I think one thing just to add to that is that I've read Sheryl Sandberg actually book Lean In, and she said something which was an eye opener. A lot of people feel self-doubt, especially when they want to share something with the world or the beliefs that they have, because they always think someone's going to say something smarter or do something better. So don't hesitate and give yourself at least 1-2 seconds and then go out there and do what you have to do. So that's quite important.
That's wonderful advice. Wemmy?
Yeah, I agree on that. I think it's so important that you believe in yourself, and I like the fact to get your mentors as well. I had 2-3 people around me who absolutely believed what I was doing. There were a lot of people who didn't believe in the project. But if you only need 2 or 3 people who stand next to you, who you can go to and ask you questions. And I had a coach as well, because I'm a nurse. I had no idea that I was an entrepreneur till I started, because I also I just started because I believed in my concepts, do something for those people of determination. But I knew that I was coming across a lot of mountains who I had to climb, which I did, but I did it with the help of a coach. And that is also what I would like to advise people. Get somebody next to you who can help you through the moments that you think, oh, this is not going to happen, or then you go down, because you will be there, and you will get stronger, and you will learn along the way, and you grow along the way. So and ask yourself the question: what's the worst that can happen? That's always, yeah.
And Malvika?
I just feel that if, as Maha said, Wemmy said, Rosemin said, if you believe in yourself and if you believe in what you want to achieve, it is possible. But I also feel you need to think long term. Thinking short term, thinking tomorrow might not necessarily give you the result you want. You need to think that, eventually 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, you want to get somewhere, and that will keep you going. Your long-term goals, your long-term aspirations. And at the same time, I really do believe, kill them with kindness. It's not easy being a woman and proving yourself. And if you're going to be determined, if you're going to believe in yourself and think long-term, once you're nice about it, you automatically achieve what you want to achieve and much more.
So true.
That's incredible advice. And now I'm going to open it up to the audience. We already have questions coming in. So this person says, hi, Maha. I think you are super cool and you have achieved so much so quickly. My question is, what skills do you think are really important for an aspiring entrepreneur?
Soft skills specifically, I think more importantly is emotional intelligence and understanding the people around you and surrounding you. Without that, especially if you're going to start building your own organization, you're going to have your own teams, and then the growth is going to take leaps. So having that is quite important. But I also think knowing how to pitch and to whom you're going to pitch your ideas. Maybe touching based on what Lucy said, always understand and know your investors and know who you're going to deal with, and prepare yourself ahead of time before going there to ask or even ask for the money, or at least the investment or the fund that you'll be requiring. And basically, lastly, I think it's important to even understand the environment that you have. Do a lot of research when it comes to the environment and the industry that you're operating in. Not only before, but even during as well as and after, because you need to reiterate as well as look at the different areas, so you can at least have a competitive advantage against any small competitor or even the private sector in general. So these are the 3 main areas I think it's quite vital and important for people to have when they're trying to build their own organization.
And then the other question is, whichever panelist wants to take this, in the ongoing economic situation, as current and future leaders, which sector of the industry do you predict will have maximum growth opportunity in this decade?
I don't mind taking this.
Yeah,
I think the current situation has taught us to believe that you can never plan what sector is going to be, what specific sector is going to be the sector that's going to take over. But one sector which has definitely proven itself as being very important is the technology, IT. Your talabats and your akids of the world. It's kept the whole country going, the whole world going. The Amazons of the world. And I think there's a future in that sector for sure, but it will keep evolving. 8 months ago, who would have said, sanitizers and gloves and masks would have been one of the fastest growing sectors or industry. So it's, again, you have to be adaptive to whatever sector you see a growth in. And I think that's the way to go forward. As long as you're adaptive, as long as you can act fast on what you think is going to be the best opportunity to lead in and grow in, you focus on that.
I will add, in addition to that, is if you are starting, whether it's a small SME or any business, you're right, this past 8 months, 9 months has been a true learning curve. And I think what every business has to allocate is a budget for technology. Any business going forward has to have a technology element. So whether it is the e-commerce side, whether it is the website, any element, there has to be a tech side to it. So you need to make sure that you're communicating effectively, giving consumers and customers what they want, and actually going one step further and predicting what they want going forward. So it really is on demand. And you'll see that customers going forward don't have the tolerance to wait a week or 10 days for a product. You are competing against these, as you said, the Amazons of the world. So if you are starting a business, make sure you do have an investment aligned with tech side as well. And make sure your branding is matching across the board. So whatever vertical you have with your businesses, that the branding is consistent.
And then there are a lot of questions, even on our Facebook, about work-life balance. And I think it's something all women struggle with, and the whole concept of, can we have it all? So there is this question. Can you touch on work-life balance, something women personally, I feel, struggle with more, as they have roles, responsibilities towards their families and homes as well, including emotional labor. How do you navigate that? So if any of you want to take this.
Well, when I started here, first of all, I had a lot of support from my husband, and that was, otherwise I couldn't have done it. So he traveled a lot, and he made sure that he was more often at home when I had to work. And especially in the beginning, when you set up a business, it takes all your time. And I think you have to make a schedule for yourself, and that you make sure that is a certain time, especially when you have children, that you make sure that you're there. For me, the dinner part was always very important, that I made sure that I was at home during dinner, that I had my dinner with the children, and after that I could just go back to my office at home and work till late night. So it's more planning, I think, but you really have to structure that for yourself. And I think we all think it's very strange to put that in your agenda, but I think that is something that's very important to do, to make time for your partner, to make time for your children, and just put it in your agenda. And that is what helped. That is what helped me.
And then there is a concept of gender lens investing, and does that help female-led funds generally, or is this concept still not in practice? So that question was for Lucy, but maybe if anybody else wants to take this and offer their insights. Malvika, I'm going to give this to you now.
I'm not very aware about what they mean by gender lens investing, so I don't want to go off topic with the answer. But in terms of, helping females-led funds, and, the concept not really being there, I think it all comes down to, what you want funding for and how assertive you are about the funding you need, or how, you know, how much you focus on what you need to get in terms of your funding. But I think Lucy would be a better person to answer this question.
And I'm actually sure Lucy would be very happy to answer that offline or
We'll send it to her and then.
Yeah, I'm sure she can give, yeah.
And then one last question before we wrap up. As the world accepts more women as leaders in the world of startups and entrepreneurship-driven businesses, what is the one key message that the panelists here want to send out to the corporate world? Maha, do you want to start?
I think just like what I mentioned previously, know your worth and believe in yourself. This is very important, especially that if you're in the corporate world, everyone is really trying to go up the ladder, corporate or even public or even private sector. Everyone is trying to, everyone is basically the same. Like, you need to know what you believe in and really know your worth and see something that is quite special or unique to yourself. Understand your strength and work on them and really highlight those strengths that you have. So that's quite important.
Rosemin?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best learning curves for me actually last year when I was kind of like an aha moment was, it's so true, is learning your worth and knowing what you bring to the table. So before you walk into a meeting, really being prepared and know what you've brought in past projects and what you are bringing forward to the client or what services you're providing. So before, it was very hard for me to, you know, say whatever achievements or targets or goals that I had achieved. And to be able to vocalize that is, for me, was a challenge. And it took me like all these years to get to that point. So when you do come to the table, make sure you're prepared. And secondly, constantly be learning. Make sure you are reading. There is so much out there within a click of a button. So whether you're reading leadership books, whether you're, you know, understanding your sector specifically, there's so many trade press out there. Make sure you're constantly learning and being on top of your game as well. So there's no excuse for not reading and not learning going forward.
Wemmy?
Yeah, sorry, I was just so involved. Can you repeat the question?
What is the one key message that the panelists here want to send out to the corporate world?
Well, if you have the corporate world, if you have equal people, if you do your interviews and you have equal, you have men and you've got women, please just step out of your comfort zone and give people the opportunity. I think that is very important. You know, we always have the feeling that we have to prove ourselves more than man in this case. If you talk about the different, if you have equal opportunity to hire a person with the equal skills, then step out of your comfort zone. And you know, I think again it is important to give everybody the opportunity and to have diversity.
And Malvika?
Rosemin and Wemmy have put down practically all my thoughts, but if I can reiterate, let's make sure that we don't choose people to come on board based on their gender. I think their hard work, their determination, and their willingness to achieve something is what should bring them onto the table and make you take them on board, and not the fact that she's going to get married or she's expected to have a child and she might become a stay-at-home mom. I think that is the way you are looked at or perceived needs to be changed as a woman. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's something that needs to be taught at home first. And it would automatically convert into learnings for the corporate structure, because first and foremost, you apply what you learn at home and then you adapt to what the world teaches you. So I think if that starts happening, it will automatically show results in the corporate world.
And on that powerful note, ladies, thank you to each one of you for being so generous with your time and for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and insights on how we can leave the world a better place for the next generation of female leaders. And thank you to everyone who joined in as well. We really hope you found this useful. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.